Jim Lynam, Sixers pre- and post-game live on NBC Sports Philadelphia. Of course, the former head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers. He's set to join us right now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline here on 97.3 ESPN. Coach, how you been?
What's up, guys?
We're doing well, and, man, we're getting down the stretch here. Sixers won 5 straight, but the last 2 nights, I mean, as a guy who coached in this league, to know when you hit that 70-game mark, to be able to get your guys in 19 and 20 minutes at this stage of the year, Coach Brown's got to be pretty happy with the last 2 nights.
I would agree. That's a big deal, particularly for Joel Embiid. If you listen to him, he doesn't want to be taking time off. He thinks he's in a good rhythm. You know, like these games right about now, not too many back-to-backs. You essentially play a game, get a day off, play the next day. So it's, to be able to give these guys, the frontline guys, rest, I think it is a big deal.
As a coach, how do you balance that? Like keeping him active and resting him and not wanting him to be, upset and just trying to get him ready for the playoffs?
Yeah, I was actually in the car driving down to the shore when Brett was speaking with you guys, and I thought he used a real good phrase. He has a lot of them, by the way, when he said rhythm versus rest. And it's a fine line. Obviously, you don't want somebody like Embiid fatigued come playoff time, but by the same token, it's equally important that he's in his rhythm. And you have to balance it with respect to him not practicing. Essentially, I mean, he goes to practice, he shoots, and he does certain things, but he doesn't play, and understandably, in 5-on-5 scrimmage type of situations. So it's a coach has a feel for it. Brett's been around a long time. I would say you tap into your experience and your feel.
Coach, you had to smile then if you were listening when you heard me basically use your topic the other night about pace of play. I said, hey, I learned this from Coach Jimmy Lynam, Brett Brown. He was talking about how the Sixers like to play the up-tempo pace of play. And by the way, we appreciate you listening, Coach. But what your point? Talk about your point that you made the other night about pace of play, and then I guess you got to be flattered if Brett Brown is right in lockstep with you.
Yeah, well, I think that's a big reason, and I give Brett a tremendous amount of credit. And I heard his reference to his time in San Antonio. And if you think about it, in one way it's pretty simplistic, but in another way, the solution to the issue not so easy. In San Antonio, you have one of the fastest, if not the fastest, guard in the league in Tony Parker. So you're not serving him well unless you play real fast. But at the same time, you have one of the best, if not the best, post-up player for years in Tim Duncan. So to kind of complement those two, not an easy thing. And I think the Sixers have really done a masterful job. And I'm a huge disciple of scheme. If you don't have the right scheme for your players, you're not going to max out what the potential is. I think you have to go no further than Doug Peterson and what he pulled off. That was a real good scheme that the Eagles ran. They maxed out the skill set of all the players. And I think that's what Brett Brown is doing with this Sixer team. You see Embiid and Simmons really flourishing partly because, yes, they're incredibly talented, but both guys complement each other so well in a big way because of the manner in which the Sixers play.
Hey, Coach, when you get to the playoffs, the pace changes and the game changes. Which player, Embiid, Simmons, maybe somebody else, is more of a playoff guy in terms of when you need that bucket, this is the guy that you got to go to come playoff time? Because it seems like night to night, Joel is obviously the guy, but is his skill set a playoff skill set to where when you need the bucket, that they have their guy? Like every team kind of has that go-to guy. Do the Sixers have a go-to guy, in your opinion, come playoff time?
Well, I'm going to say it in such a fashion that you might fall out of your chair. No team in the league has the guy even close to Embiid, for me, in terms of skill set to throw a ball to when you need a basket late in the game. That's how good I think he is.
And are you amazed that his skill set is where it's at with such limited amount of NBA experience?
Well, it's unfathomable if I think that's the right word.
Yes.
If you take all his background, all these injuries, and where this guy is. I actually made the statement the other day, and I'm not really prone, to like superlatives and all the young players. The percentage of them that are really difference makers is very, very small. This guy is so special. I would throw out there the consideration. I'm not like proclaiming this. The consideration. He may be the best story in the history of sport. How about that?
Wow.
Whoa.
But think about it. He was playing soccer and volleyball in Africa 10 years ago. He never touched the basketball.
That is
now. Think about it.
I was going to follow this because obviously, you were around Charles, you were around some great players in that time frame in that early '90s, and I'm wondering, like, is he the kind of guy that would be able to excel in all generations? Because, I ask all the time, I'd like to get your opinion on it. A guy like Karl Malone, who's a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest scorers ever. But how does his game translate to today's game? I'd love to see how he would figure it out. I'm sure he could.
It's a great question, Mike, but here's what I would say you have to do if you're going to have a chance of answering it. You have to put the person that you're referring to in current day environment, which would mean Malone would be coming up, he'd be playing AAU basketball, he'd be practicing shooting like the big guys do today from out at three-point line. He'd be handling the ball a lot more in the open floor. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's like
that's a good point.
Tapes of Karl Malone and say, I don't think this guy fits. Of course he doesn't fit. That's not how they played basketball when he played. But these guys are so good physically, the guys you're referring to, the Barkleys and Malones, you have to assume, I think, that they would be playing the way the current players play in terms of skill set, style, and what have you. And they're so gifted, and they were so superior to all the rest of the people.
That's a great point. By the way, that's a great point. I love the way you answered that question. That's a really good point.
Yeah, so I think most of the great ones, they would stand the test of time.
And, Coach, just real quick on Embiid, David Murphy from the Philadelphia Daily News added up. Like the other night, whatever it was, the point that he was in the season would have been the point of all the NBA games he played last year, plus all the high school games, like college. His level, the ceiling on him is unlimited because we haven't seen him to this point yet.
Well, I don't argue it because watch. I'll just give you one example. The play of choice, not just in the NBA, even in the college game now, is pick and roll. If you go to an NBA game, you'll see literally between 70 and 100 pick and rolls. And whether you watch Chris Paul run the pick and roll, James Harden run the pick and roll, talented wing players run pick and rolls. The Sixers now have incorporated into their scheme. It's a little bit of a trick, but you ready? Joel Embiid runs the pick and roll. Yes. Somebody comes up and sets the pick on Embiid's man. He dribbles the basketball. He did it the other night in the net game with 5 minutes to go in a tie game. They say he pretended he's going to run a little dribble handoff, and I don't know if it was TJ or whoever. They set a pick on this guy. He dribbles with his left hand, 2 dribbles, shoots a reverse layup field goal to give the Sixers a 2-point lead. I turned to him, I said, whoever I was sitting with, I said, how about the first center in the history of basketball to run a pick and roll? Yes.
I couldn't imagine seeing a guy with this skill set playing back when you were. I mean, you had guys like Jaminski and Mahorn. Can you imagine them doing some of the things that this guy's doing?
Come on, I mean it's staggering, and I'm going to tell you what's equally staggering to me. And I'll go back and repeat that because of the way they play, the way Simmons and Embiid complement each other. To me, it's like a symbiotic relationship. It's like somebody crafted these two guys to play together, not just like give me a great point guard, give me a great center. No, I want a special kind of guy who can play with this guy. And these two guys play off each other so incredibly well. It's just a pleasure to watch night in and night out.
Coach Jim Lynam's with us. You can see him on pre- and post-game coverage on NBC Sports Philadelphia and NBC Sports Philadelphia Plus. Coach, if you were listening, then you probably heard me ask Coach Brown that last question about what stats he gravitates towards. What was your take on his answer? Because he said the defense, what the other team shot against them, and then also he talked about the sharing of the basketball, the 30 assists on 42 made baskets.
Right. Yeah. And I think if you watch them play, I would have guessed both of those things. I think if you gave me three areas that I would guess Brett would focus on, I would have hit those two. Because they all year long they've been one of the best defensive team, and I know that Brett takes a great amount of pride in that. That doesn't just happen by accident. You need a lot of players committed to the program, and give the Sixers credit. They select these players with great care. They like quickness, they like length, and they have an abundance of that. And they put it to good use at the defensive end of the court. And I think the second thing, which he sold from day one, independent of how many games his team was winning, he wanted to play a fast pace and he wanted to share the ball. And they're right up there at the top of the league with number of assists per basket. As you said, last night they had 42 buckets and they assisted on 30 of them, which is a huge percentage. The league would be more down toward, I'd say over 50%, but less than 2/3. So the Sixers, they have a lot of things that they do very, very well. And as a result, I think they're going to be a real challenge for somebody in the playoffs.
And they're a game out of that 3 seed right now. They're currently the 4 seed. Coach, if Markelle Fultz was ready to go, are you implementing him in right now?
I'd be a little cautious with respect to that. I heard Brett's answer, but he also kind of backed his yes up with, I thought, a number of very sound conditions, that you have to like the way he's playing. You have to like his confidence level. You have to feel that he's able to fit in and he's playing in the flow with his teammates. It's a very, very difficult, I think, chore to ask, particularly of a rookie who's played 4 games to jump in this late in the session. I'll just say it this way: I'd bet my dollar it's not going to happen. That's just my opinion.
All right, that is the opinion of Coach Jim Lynam from NBC Sports Philadelphia. Sixers pre- and post-game live tomorrow night. The Sixers take on the T-Wolves, and we'll see if the Sixers can make that climb up to number 3. If they get to number 3, Coach, are they a legitimate finals potential team?
Well, that's a good question. I think they have a great chance to win a first-round series. The second round, I think LeBron, to get past LeBron, you have to state the fact he's been to the finals 8 straight years. So it's not going to be an easy task to knock him aside. And I think Toronto has played really the best basketball in the East all year long. So to take out either one of those teams would be a real chore for a team as young as the Sixers. I'm not saying they couldn't do it, but they'd certainly be an underdog. But anybody else, including Boston, given all the injuries and that Kyrie situation being so undetermined, I'd give them a real good shot against anybody other than those first 2 teams. I think that'd be, not that they couldn't do it, but the other 2, Cleveland and Toronto, would be favored.
Okay, Coach Jimmy Lynam here on the Sports Bash. Coach, we appreciate your time as always.
Anytime, guys. Enjoy talking.